body possesses energy. And there's two types of energy, right? There's potential energy, there's kinetic energy, right? So, what is potential energy and what is kinetic energy? You know? Rhea? It has energy because of its position, right? And kinetic energy? It has energy due to its motion.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you climb a mountain, right, and you're on the edge of a cliff way up on the mountain, you have some potential energy because you climbed up so high. So if you jump off the cliff, you'll go down very fast, right? So that's potential. Or else wood has potential energy in it. Yes? Oh, the chick, yeah, I forgot. We're studying science today, what it is, and what its limits are. Actually, science is very, very limited in what it can do. So this is an article written by a scientist, and he's explaining 6 assumptions on which science is based. An assumption is something that you take for granted as being true, although it may not be true. Just like Hitler made an assumption that blonde, blue-eyed Germans are a superior race of people. Is that true? No, but he made that assumption. Okay, so to understand science, let's read this. Who's going to read? Is that written there? Yeah. What's an assumption?
Assumption is something you take for granted to be true, but it might not.
Yeah, go ahead.
I considered including assumptions in the scientific vocabulary article, but given how often the concept of assumptions in science is misinterpreted, I decided to be a little more thorough with it. Reality is very, very complicated, and we as humans are rather limited. Not even the smartest or the most gifted of us can know about everything, or be able to have a complete understanding of everything. This is why science is divided into different disciplines. Physics, geology, biology, mathematics, chemistry, archaeology, physiology, etc. Each of those can of course
You forgot nonsensology.
Each of those can of course be subdivided into other disciplines. As different and unrelated as some of these disciplines may seem to each other, they all overlap. The science of biology have benefited from discoveries made in chemistry. Chemistry have benefited from discoveries made in physics, etc. One must never forget that the overarching purpose of science is to understand everything, and all of these disciplines affect us all the time. As you sit there reading this, there are physical forces working on your body, chemical reactions happening in your gut, biological processes taking place in your cells, physiology going on in your head, etc. All these processes happen everywhere, all the time. The separation of the disciplines do not really reflect reality, but it had to be done in order to study reality. This is why in many cases today you will find multidisciplinary teams working together, and in order for them all to work together and to be able to integrate all their combined knowledge, there had to be a number of base assumptions made. These 6 assumptions are common to all the disciplines, to all scientists.
So these are base assumptions on which modern science functions. This is what all scientists take these assumptions to be true. They may or may not be true, but they take them to be true, and they engage in scientific research based on these assumptions. Okay? All right.
So
number one assumption. Okay, Pranav, you read number 1 assumption.
Nature is orderly, and the laws of nature describe that order. When we speak
Okay,
of
wait a minute. Let me ask you a question. How did nature become orderly? When they explain in school that everything started with a big bang, is that something orderly or disorderly? So now, how did nature become orderly?
It never did.
Huh?
It didn't.
It didn't?
Yeah. It is.
No, it is orderly. Otherwise you wouldn't have science. Orderly means you can predict things once you understand models in nature. Like, for example, can they predict eclipses of the sun? Can they predict the changing of the seasons? Can they predict when the sun rises and the sun sets every day? And those are different times all through the year. They can predict it. That means something is happening orderly. Now, they say that in the beginning there was a big bang. Is that something orderly or disorderly? Yeah, if I put a big bang in your kitchen, does it create something or destroy something? Right. Yeah, it's a disorderly. So how did everything all of a sudden become orderly now?
There was no Big Bang in the first place.
Well, they say that it all started with a big bang, and somehow or other it all became orderly, or it became organized. Does that make sense? If I blow up your car, will the car come back together again by itself? No. This is very interesting, isn't it? That these are the scientists. They say, well, we make certain assumptions. And the number one assumption is that nature is orderly, and the laws of nature describe that order. Now, who made the laws? Do laws make themselves? Lawmakers make laws, right? Just like you have the Congress of the United States, you have the Congress in each state also. You have state representatives and state senators, and then you have federal representatives and senators. You know, they make laws, right? So where do these laws come from? And yeah, it has to be. Did nature just, did it just happen like by accident? No. You see how ridiculous the whole thing is? They're teaching you everything starts with a big bang, and they say for us to do science, we assume that nature is orderly, that it's organized, that it's rational, that it's predictable. And there are laws of nature that describe the order or the organization of nature. Now, how does that make sense? On one hand, they say it's all happened randomly by accident. On the other hand, they say that nature is organized. So, does anything start in a random way? No. I mean, did Microsoft start in a random way? Did it happen by accident with nobody in charge? No. So how can the whole creation be random? How can it happen by accident? You see, the most irrational people in this world are scientists and philosophers, although they claim to be very rational. But right here, you see right away, this first assumption made by all scientists is irrational if you take into account their explanation of creation. They say it all happened in a random, accidental way. Okay, so do they explain in your school how nature came about? What grade are you in? But you learned in the 6th grade, right? You go to what? Covered in one day. You never heard about the Big Bang Theory?
We had some presentations in science when we were learning what space and we had presentations and we could choose any topic that was related to space and some
The Big Bang. What did they say? You remember?
There was an explosion, and then it didn't make sense. It didn't.
What?
Isn't there a black hole?
I did the presentation of the black holes. About half the class made presentations about black holes.
You made a presentation on black holes? What did you say about the black holes?
Like I recently talked about how. Basically, in my presentation, I was talking about how black holes are created.
How were they created?
When a star dies, then because in a star there's like the gravity is pushing the star inside, and the energy that the star is releasing pushes it outside. So then there is the balance.
Wait. Something's pushing on the inside of the star?
Like the gravity is pushing the star
Coming closer together?
Yeah, and the energy in the star that the star is producing pushes outwards. So there is a balance between the gravity pushing inward.
So there's going to be an explosion?
Wait, and then when the star is like dying, then it doesn't produce energy, and so the gravity that's pushing on the outside just like the star just collapses into itself, and then it turns into a point of infinite density.
It turns into what?
It collapses into a point of infinite density, and then
What?
and then it turns into a black hole, and then
It turns into a point of infinite density.
yeah.
There we go again. A point of infinite. Did you ever ask them what is a point of infinite density? Can you measure a point of infinite density?
No.
The whole thing is nonsense. They're just words. You just put words together, and there's supposed to be an explanation.
And then
So there's no God involved, right? There's no intelligence involved. It's all happening by itself, right?
yeah. I mean, according to the scientists.
Yeah. And then what else?
And then it talked about also like what happens like if a person were to go inside the black hole.
You go inside. Anybody ever go inside a black hole?
No.
How do they know what's happening inside the black hole?
I don't know.
What do they say happens?
So basically when a person goes near the black hole,
When a person goes in the black hole.
and when they go near the black hole, like because the gravity on their head, like if they're falling head first, then the gravity on their head, because their head is closer to the black hole, the gravity on their head is even more is much more than it is on their feet, because their feet are farther away from the black hole. So then the gravity pulls the head much faster than it does the feet, so then the body stretches apart, and then
Stretches apart?
and so if you enter
It sounds like a Harry Potter story. Okay.
and if you enter a small black hole, then you will die before you reach the event horizon.
What happens if you enter a big black hole?
And if you enter a big black hole, then you might survive till you reach the event horizon. So then the scientists
Until you reach what?
What?
You reach what?
Then you might reach the horizon, like the event
Horizon?
Yeah, horizon. So the scientists say that if you want to see the black hole, then you should go into a big black hole.
So if
not
you
a
want to
small one.
examine a black hole, you should only go into a big black hole,
Yeah,
not a
because you will
small black hole.
survive. You will at
How do
least
they know
survive.
that?
They make theories, and then they also talked about if a person were to see you falling into the black hole from far away, they would never see you go past the event horizon. They would just see you because time would stop near the black hole, so they would just see you slow down and then just disappear, become dimmer and
You would disappear.
redder. Yeah, and then you would disappear.
Into the black hole.
No, they wouldn't see you going into the black hole, because near the black hole the time stops.
Okay.
So yeah.
They know a lot about black holes, but no one has ever gone into one. So how do they know it's true?
They say the time stops near a black hole because the black hole rips a hole in space. So then there is no time. But for the person who's falling into a black hole, time is going normally, but not for the person who's watching them far away.
So you believe all that?
Huh?
Do you believe all that?
No.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's
And
science.
then we also talked about how black holes can evaporate.
How much time did you spend on black holes?
Making the presentation or presenting it?
Well, yeah, the discussion and everything.
It was really quick because a lot of other people were also talking about black holes. So I didn't focus much on the birth of the black hole and what happens if you jump into a black hole. But I did more about how a black hole were to evaporate because not many people did that.
Okay, so these are explanations. There's no proof that they're true.
Yeah.
They're just explanations made up by people. And
Wait, but I have a question. A
Yeah.
few days after my presentation,
what?
that day, there was a lot of other people who were doing black hole presentations. So one person said that the scientists just took their first picture of a black hole.
Did you see it?
Yeah, he showed it in the presentation.
If it's completely black, how can you see it?
No, because until the event horizon, there is light, but then after the event horizon, the event horizon is the point where even light cannot escape from the black hole. So if there is a black hole, there would be a ring of light around it.
Okay, so here we see a lot of explanations and no proof. And the picture of a black hole, how do you know it's a real picture? It's not a Photoshop picture.
We don't.
You don't. There's a lot of things you don't know. And so, therefore, they're assuming things that contradict their assumption about creation. And there's no proof of any of it. It just sounds good, right? So here we see that the first. Now let's read this. You were reading. Go ahead. When we speak of the orderliness of nature, we speak in terms of regularity, pattern, and structure.
For example, when we look at herd of wild beasts migrating, we assume that it's not just random behavior. We justify this assumption through observation by noting the patterns of the behavior, the structure of the herd, and
So there's regularity, pattern, and structure, right? That's what they mean by orderliness of nature. Now, have you ever seen a monkey paint? You know, you can look up on the internet. There's many examples of monkeys that paint. Yeah, they paint. It's called modern art. Now, is there any pattern, regularity, or structure of the monkey's painting? Not much. Every painting is different. Let's put it like that. You know, they just give the brush to the monkey and they dip it in the color, and he starts going like this. You know? So, do you think nature can organize itself into regularity, patterns, and structure? Doesn't make sense, does it? How can something without intelligence develop into regular patterns, models, structures, and things like that? You see, this is all speculation. There's no factual information about it. They're just assuming this. And they're assuming that it happened without any intelligence behind. Okay, go ahead. We justify this assumption. Read that. We justify. That means we satisfy ourselves that our assumption is true.
We justify this assumption through observation by noting the patterns of behavior, the structure of the herd, etc., and thereby come to conclusions explaining their behavior.
Okay, now he's talking about a behavior of, what do they call them? A certain type of animal. A wildebeest. The wildebeest. Wildebeest looks something like a deer. They're in Africa. Right? So, what he's saying is, we make an assumption and we justify it. We prove it's true by looking at this troop of wildebeests. You ever see a wildebeest? No, they exist. And like I said, it looks something like a deer, right? What do you think that is? Like, what do you think a wild beast is? That's called a circular definition. You went around in a circle there. No, a wildebeest looks something like a deer, all right? It's not a deer, but it looks something like a deer, right? And there's whole big herds of them running around wild in Africa. Okay, so they by watching the wildebeest, they see that there's patterns of behavior, and there's a certain structure, or there's like, it looks like some of the wildebeest are leading the other wildebeest. So they say that this proves that our assumption is true. That nature is orderly. That means it has regularity, it has patterns, it has structure. Now, did they in any way, what's that? Who wants? No, that's not it. It's this. Don't just grab any paper. Don't be a wildebeest. So, this is called begging the question. All right, you have your cell phone. Look up begging the question. That is, you prove something by making an assumption that it's true. Did you get that? You prove something by making an assumption that it's true. Does that sound rational? No. What's it say? Begging the question. What's it say? Begging the question. B-E-G-G-I-N-G. The question. Q-U-E-S-T-I-O-N. Did you write that, Ria? Begging the question. What's it say? Okay, give him the microphone. Give him the microphone. Yes?
In classical
Hold closer to your mouth.
in classical rhetoric and logic.
No, rhetorical.
Rhetoric, yeah.
Rhetoric and logic.
Rhetoric and logic. Begging the question is an informal fallacy.
A fallacy means something that's not true. Go ahead. What is it?
That occurs when an argument's premises assume the truth.
No, when the argument's premises.
Premises.
Yes. Yeah, that means the first things that you assume. Go ahead.
The truth of the conclusion.
Oh, come on. What?
Of the conclusion.
No. Read that again.
When an argument's premises assume the truth of the conclusion.
Yeah, that's the point. Begging the question means you assume something and you prove it by your assumption. And that's exactly what they do here. You assume something to be true and you use that assumption to prove that it's true.
It's a little unclear still.
Huh?
It is still unclear a little bit.
Okay. Read it again. Read it again. Read very slowly the definition. It's only a few words. Read it very slowly. Put the microphone closer to your mouth.
Okay. Begging the question is an informal fallacy.
Okay. Fallacy means it's not true. Okay? Now don't
That
read that again. Read the rest of it.
Read again, you said?
No, don't read that again.
Okay.
Just read the rest of it.
That occurs when an argument
Okay. When an argument
premises.
So you're having a discussion and you make a premise. A premise is an assumption. Right? Look it up, Stresta. What is a premise? It's an assumption. It's something that you assume to be true. When the argument's premises, go ahead.
Assume the truth of the conclusion.
Assume the truth of the conclusion. When the argument's premises, what is a premise? Go ahead, give it a microphone. A previous statement
or proposition from which another is inferred or follows as a conclusion.
Right. So, the first premise here in this argument is nature is orderly, and the laws of nature describe that order. Okay? So nature is orderly. Now what does he mean by orderly? It has regularity, it has a pattern, it has structure. Okay? Now, how do they prove this? They observe a troop of wildebeests. Wildebeests are animals that look something like deer, right? And they're in Africa. And they see that they don't have random behavior. They're in a herd. They are going in a particular direction, like they're looking for water in a very hot season, and they're able to find it, right? And they seem to be organized. So they say, aha, this proves our assumption that nature is orderly, because we're seeing order in nature. That doesn't prove anything. That's begging the question. You take the premises of an argument and you use them to prove that it's true. But those premises are what? They're assumptions. You make an assumption, you make a guess, and you use the guess to prove that it's true. Now, this guy is a little more intelligent. He's saying, well, we know it, we see this in nature, right? That the wildebeests, they're going in a herd and they're looking for water and they find the water, and then now they're going somewhere else to eat something, and they're moving all together, so that there's some regularity, that's some pattern, that's some structure. Does that explain anything? It doesn't explain anything, right? They make an assumption. They see something that seems to prove their assumption, and they say it's true. But that doesn't explain anything. Where did the wildebeest get the intelligence to move in a herd together? Evolved from a point of infinite density? You know, the whole thing is nonsense. These are false arguments. Begging the question is a fallacious argument. Fallacious means it's false. You can't take a premise that you assume and use it to prove that your premise is true. You can't do that. That's not a way of proving something. Okay, you observe something that seems to support your premise. That's called selective evidence, because there might be something else that doesn't prove your premise, but that you reject. You don't talk about that. You just talk about what seems to prove your premise. But the premise itself doesn't explain anything. That nature is orderly. But how did it become orderly? It doesn't explain how it became orderly. It just you have this begging the question where you assume something to be true, And if you see something that seems to support it, you say, aha, that means it's true. So that's not science. Because we can say, well, wait a minute. Everything we see in society is due to intelligence. The microphone, the harmonium, the chair, the carpet, this building, the electricity lighting up this light, the light bulb itself. It's all intelligence behind it. Intelligent people made all these things. It didn't happen by itself. I could say, okay, I don't know anything about all these people. I'm a savage from Africa that's flown to Seattle. I've never seen organized society before. And I come into this room and I'm looking at this light and I'm looking around and I make an assumption. The assumption is everything is orderly in the universe. And this light proves it. Because it comes off and on at regulated times because it's controlled by a device, right? And I said, this proves it. You know? But wait a minute. That doesn't tell me how the building was built, how the electrical wires were connected to junction boxes, how there's Puget Sound electricity. And you see, it doesn't tell me anything. I just made an assumption, and I proved the assumption by seeing that there's an electric light that goes on and off. Okay. So nature is orderly. How did it become orderly? Because there was a black hole that exploded? You know, a black hole that is a point of infinite density? That's nonsense. It's complete nonsense. Okay, go ahead, read some more. We justify this assumption through observation by noting the patterns of behavior, the structure of the herd. Herd means the wildebeests, an African animal that moves around in herds. Okay? And thereby come to conclusions explaining their behavior. You were reading, we justify this assumption. You see it?
Oh, yeah. We justify this assumption through observation by noting the patterns of behavior, the structure of the herd, etc., and thereby come to conclusions explaining their behavior.
So they make an assumption and they justify it by seeing something that looks like it supports their theory. But that doesn't prove anything. Go ahead.
The same applies to other natural phenomena.
No, how do you know that? You don't know that. Go ahead.
Before Newton's law was formulated, the motions of planets were unexplained.
Wait a minute. Newton's law simply explains something that's already existing. It's not Newton's law. Somebody else made the law. He just figured it out. Huh? Yeah, and what does he say? He says, before Newton's law was formulated, the motions of the planets were unexplained. We knew that they were moving in specific patterns. I mean, the law was already established. They were moving already in specific patterns. Newton just figured it out. He didn't discover anything new. It has always been there, right? So if he's called a scientist, all he did was discover what another scientist did. You see my point? Because it says here, before Newton's law was formulated, the motions of the planets were unexplained. Unexplained for the dummies. We knew they were moving in specific patterns, but we didn't know why. Well, because you didn't know why doesn't mean somebody else didn't know why. Otherwise, how could they be moving in specific patterns? You see? The same applies to other. We knew they were moving in specific patterns, but we didn't know why. Newton unraveled the mystery by making an assumption. Well, the mystery, it's not that he made an assumption. It's that there was a mystery because they didn't see the previous scientists who made this thing. That's the mystery. Who's that scientist? Rarush, who was that scientist? Yeah, exactly. Newton unraveled the mystery by making an assumption. He assumed that gravity would hold true not just here but everywhere too, a universal law that applied everywhere. Of course, we haven't seen every single star in the universe or every planet, but Newton's law has held true at every single star we have observed and in every single test we have devised. So we can safely assume that Newton's law is universal. Well, wait a minute. Did Newton make the law? No. So, therefore, he's not the creator of the law. The law was already existing. Well, how do we know that? Because everything's moving in an orderly way. So somebody else made the law. Newton just figured it out. But wait a minute. Newton's law was replaced by quantum theory. Is that true? Because Newton's law doesn't explain the movement of microscopic particles at the speed of light. They had to come up with a new theory. It only deals with big bodies moving at much slower speeds. See? Okay. So we can safely assume that Newton's law is universal. Well, let's look it up. Is Newton, type into your Wikipedia, onto your computer, is Newton's law universal? Every one of these theories is only applicable in a very limited sphere of reference. This guy's saying Newton's law is universal. Is that true? Is Newton's law of motion universal? What did they say? Are you looking it up, Sanskriti? Are you doing your drawing or you're looking it up? Yeah. Okay. What's it say, Shrista? Read out loud. See, it's not universal. It doesn't apply to very small particles at very fast speeds. It only applies to big things. So everything that they find, and they call it Newton's law or Fig Newton's law or whatever, it's in a specific sphere of reference. It's not universal. That's why, see, the purpose of science is to explain all motions and explain everything. Therefore, they accept that there's conservation of energy. But the top scientists like Einstein and others, they were looking for something greater than that. They were looking for the unified field theory. Write that down. Unified field theory. UNIFIED, field, F-I-E-L-D, theory, T-H-E-O-R-Y. What is the unified field theory? Look it up, sister. Unified field theory. You know what that is? No. Never heard of it. Now you heard it.
Wait, is it like combining all the theories into one?
No. No, it's basically what they say science is aiming for. What do they say science is aiming for? To have a complete understanding of everything. That's what the unified field theory is. See, we read it in the beginning. The first, it said understanding science, scientific assumptions. So the first paragraph, he said, reality is very, very complicated, and we as humans are rather limited. Not even the smartest or the most gifted of us can know about everything or be able to have a complete understanding of everything. This is why science is divided into different disciplines. But see, the goal of science is to have a complete understanding of everything. Huh? What?
What's the definition?
Okay, yes, Shrestha, what is it?
Yeah. So here first, in physics, a unified field theory is a type of field theory that allows all that is visually thought of as fundamental forces and elementary particles to be written in terms of a pair of physical and virtual fields.
To be what?
To be written in terms
To be what?
to be written
Written.
in terms of a pair of physical and virtual fields.
Yeah, okay, so basically he's saying it's the theory by which we can explain the movement of everything.
Yeah, a theory that describes two or more of the four interactions, electromagnetic, gravitational, weak, and strong, previously described by separating.
Yeah, you see, they only know two things. Scientists only know two things. One is gravity, and the other is electromagnetism. So read that again. Let me just hear that one more time.
A theory that describes two or more of the four interactions, electromagnetic, gravitational, weak, and strong.
See, they only know four things. Basically, it's two things. There's electromagnetism and gravity, and then there's weak and strong fields of those things. That's all they know. There are many other types of energies that they don't know yet. That's why they cannot come up with this unified field theory. Einstein tried his best, he couldn't do it. And still today, there is no such thing as a unified field theory that explains all motion, all motions. Now, what did we say last week? We introduced a concept called the prime mover. Remember that last week? We discussed the prime mover. You weren't here. Okay, what is the prime mover, Justin? Yeah, look it up. Prime mover. Or primal mover. Again, this is, remember we talked about potential and kinetic energy. So, in order to transform the potential energy into kinetic energy, you need someone to push. Let's say you're standing on the edge of a cliff, so you have potential energy. But for you to release that potential energy, someone's got to push you off the cliff. Right? And then right away you start falling at really fast, you know. What's it say, Prime? Okay, read it. Give her a microphone. Real quick.
Prime mover is a concept advanced by Aristotle as the primary cause, or first uncaused cause, or mover of all the motion in the universe.
There you go.
Yeah, come. No, just stand here, like so that I have someone to turn the thing for me. Oh, switch second. यशोमती नंदन ब्रजवर नागर गोकुल रंजन काना गोपी परन धन मदन मनोहर कालिय दमन विदाना आमल हरि नाम विलासा विपिन पुरंदर नवीन नगर बर बंशीधरन सुवासा ब्रज जन पालन सुरकुल नाशन नंद गोधन रखवाला गोविंद माधव नवनीत तस्करा सुंदर नंद गोपाला यमुना तट चर गोपी बसन हर रास रसिका कृपा मोया श्री राधा वल्लभ वृंदावन भक्ति विनोदाशाया यशोमती नंदन ब्रजवर नागर Gokula Ranjana Gana. Yashomati Nandana Vrajavara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Gana. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Nila Madhav Radha, Nila Madhav Radhe. Jaya Sita Ram, Jaya Sita Ram, Jaya Sita Ram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
His divine grace, Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Namacharya Sri Nasta, Shivasani Gaur Bhakti, Nitai Gaur all praise to some of the devotees, all praise to some of the devotees, Okay, so the prime mover is a concept that Aristotle presented to the West, but there much earlier than that. You want to know where that idea came from, of the prime mover? No? Comes from Srimad Bhagavatam, first mantra, first canto, first chapter, first mantra. Janvadasya yatha nivayati devatas chartesha vidyasvara sine brahma hridaya adhikavaya muyanti asuraya tejo varibridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo misha damna strena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimai. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 111. Write this down. 111. Srimad Bhagavatam. What does this say? Now you repeat after me. O my Lord Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva. Go ahead, repeat. O my Lord Sri Krishna. O all-pervading personality of Godhead. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. sustenance, and destruction. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him. So what did Aristotle say was the prime mover? Read it, definition. Closer, with the microphone closer to your mouth. Closer. He says that he's the prime mover, means it's...
Aristotle said that the unmoved mover or prime mover is a concept advanced by Aristotle as a primary cause or mover of all the motion in the universe.
So it says here that Krishna is the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes. You see? Way before Aristotle, the idea of a primal mover was put forward by Vyasadeva. And who is that primal mover? Aristotle doesn't say who it is, right? Does he say who it is? Does Aristotle say it? No. It's Krishna. He's the prime mover. And he's independent because there's no other cause beyond him. Not only he's the cause of everything, he's also the effect. What were the three types of oneness, which was your homework last week? What were the three types of oneness explained in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam? This was your homework last week. Ria, did you do your homework last week? No. Okay. Did you do your homework? No. Did you do your homework over? No. Pranav, you didn't do it. Shrestha did her homework.
I did some of it. I didn't get to like the 3 types.
Oh, you didn't? Oh. But somebody did. Who was it that did? They sent it to me. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah. Did you send it to me? You didn't send me your homework.
I didn't exactly finish, but I got the main part. So, real oneness is based on the idea that Krishna is everything, but everything is not Krishna. More specifically, Krishna is in everything. He's in each and every atom, and even in the space in between the atoms. But that does not mean that
Even if what?
And he's even in the space between the atoms.
Okay.
But that does not mean that we are Krishna or we can become Krishna because he is in us. As explained in Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 4th verse by Srila Prabhupada. Yet one should not conclude that because he is spread all over, he has lost his personal existence.
What verse? 10th chapter, verse 4?
And ninth chapter?
No, 9th chapter, verse 4, yeah.
Yeah. Yet one should not conclude that because he is spread all over, he has lost his personal existence. To refute such an argument, the Lord says, I am everywhere, and everything is in me, but I am still aloof. For example, a king heads a government, which is but the manifestation of the king's energy. The different governmental departments are nothing but the energies of the king, and each department is resting on the king's power. But still, one cannot expect the king to be present in every department personally. Krishna is able to be simultaneously one and different through Aja, his mystical power. However,
Where was that a quote from?
This quote?
Oh, Aja. Is that a word that you'd used? That
Yeah,
we
that's the
learned
word that I
previously.
used, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
However, Mayavadis think that by intense practice of yoga, anyone can achieve the position of God. This idea is incorrect because Krishna is eternal. This means that he was never born and he will never die.
No, we are also. We were never born and will never die. That doesn't prove that he has Aja. I mean, we don't have Aja. We have very limited mystical power. Like a bird has mystical power; it flies through the air. It's mystical how it does it. But Krishna has unlimited mystical power. It's not only because he's eternal. It's that supports it, because he is the source of everything. Therefore, he has, like scientists, they only know two energies. What are those two energies that science knows?
And then gravity.
And gravity. But Krishna has multiple energies, millions of energies, as internal energy, as marginal energy, as external energy. It's not just gravity and electromagnetism. There are many other energies that Krishna has that scientists don't even know about yet. You see? So that's why it's aja. It bewilders people when they see that he's dancing with 16,000 gopis, and it looks like he's dancing with each one at the same time. And he has over 16,000 wives in Dwarka, and he's present with each one, doing different things simultaneously. These are energies that nobody knows where it's coming from, how he's doing it. You see, scientists only know two little energies. That doesn't explain everything. Those two energies don't. They try and make it explain everything, but it's all speculative. There are many more energies at play in the universe, and they're all coming and are controlled by Krishna. Go ahead.
So, because Krishna is eternal, that means that nobody can become God, because God is never born.
Not as what?
God is never born, and he's never...
No, but we're also part and parcel of Krishna. We're also eternal. See, Krishna says, "Natvevaham jatu nasam, natvam nemi janadi." He tells Arjuna, never was there a time I did not exist, nor you, nor all the others, nor will there ever be a time we will cease to exist. So, no, Krishna is God because he is the cause of all causes, and he has no cause himself. He has unlimited energies. He's not limited, he's unlimited. It's not just because he's eternal. We're all eternal. Even the material nature is eternal. But Krishna is the source of everything. He's the cause of all causes. There's no cause of Krishna. And that's the definition that Aristotle gives. He says the prime mover, or the primal mover, is the source of all motion, and it has no cause. But see, for him it's an it. For us it's a he, him. Yeah, you see, he didn't name who the primal cause mover is. But here Vyasadeva names him. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Krishna. Go ahead. So you have to correct that. Yeah. Go ahead.
That's it.
That's it. Good. Okay, so the second part of homework you didn't do is to explain the three reasons for oneness. And not one of them is the Mayavadi reason. So reason number one, Krishna is the cause of all causes. Reason number two, he's present in everything. Every atom of the universe, in the heart of every living entity. Even in the space between the atoms, he's present, right? And number three, he okay, one second. I talked about it last night. Okay, here, let's see. This is in the ninth canto, the seventh canto, right? Oh, ninth canto. Srimad Bhagavatam. Let me just think. What was the third reason? Cause of all causes. He is present everywhere. And he Brahman. Personal episode, see Brahman. Okay, 1 second. Impersonalism. Okay, anyway, I'll have to find it later. He is the cause of all causes. He is present in everything. And these are all reasons why these are all legitimate reasons of oneness. And everything is contained within him. That's it. So he's the cause of all causes. He's present in everything, and everything is contained within him. That is real oneness. Right. What are you looking at?
The same verse I was reading that you had mentioned last.
Yeah, which one is it?
This is 7.9.
Oh, 7th canto. Okay.
7.9.30.
Yeah, 7.9.3. Yeah, that's it. I was looking in the wrong book. Am I right?
7.9.30.
No, I know, but was what I said right? Huh? Seven, 9:30. Oh yeah, here it is. So, 7:9:30. There are three things. Is it there? What is it? There was one more verse that's not 7:9.
7:15:59.
That's it. 7:15. 7:15. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, this is it. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read this. He who exists internally and externally, at the beginning and the end of everything, and of all living beings, as that which is enjoyable and as the enjoyer of everything, superior and inferior, is the supreme truth. He always exists as knowledge and the object of knowledge, as expression and the object of understanding, as darkness and as light. Thus he, the Supreme Lord, is everything. Here the Vedic aphorism, Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma, is explained. It is also explained in the Chatur Sloki Bhagavatam, Aham Evasam Evagre. The Supreme Lord existed in the beginning. He exists after the creation and maintains everything. And after destruction, everything merges in him, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Pakritim Yanti Mamikam. Thus, the Supreme Lord is actually everything. But everything is not Krishna, right? That was the first homework, right? That's what you explained, right? In the conditioned state, we are bewildered in our understanding, but in the perfect stage of liberation, we can understand that Krishna is the cause of everything. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchitananda Vigraha. Okay. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He's the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. This is the perfection of knowledge. So this is the first principle of oneness. Krishna is the cause of all causes. There are three principles of real oneness, not the Mayavadi fake explanation of oneness. So first is Krishna is the cause of all causes. Okay? Although one may consider, this is the next verse, 58, although one may consider the reflection of the sun from a mirror to be false, it has its factual existence. Accordingly, to prove by speculative knowledge that there is no reality would be extremely difficult. So this is what the Mayavadis are saying. They're saying that everything you see is not real. But it's a reflection of something that's real. Just like here's my hand, right? You see my hand? But here's the shadow of my hand, and it only moves when my hand moves. So my shadow is moving like this. The shadow of my hand. So the shadow of my hand implies that there's a real hand somewhere. And the shadow is not unreal because it has some kind of temporary existence. Right? But it's unreal in the sense that if you try and shake the shadow of my hand, it doesn't shake. Right? The impersonalist tries to prove that the varieties in the vision of the empiric philosopher are false. The impersonalist philosophy, Vivartavada, generally cites the acceptance of a rope to be a snake as an example of this fact. According to this example, the varieties within our vision are false, just as a rope seen to be a snake is false. The Vaishnavas say, however, that although the idea that the rope is a snake is false, the snake is not false. One has experience of a snake in reality, and therefore he knows that although the representation of the rope as a snake is false or illusory, there is a snake in reality. Similarly, this world, which is full of varieties, is not false. It is a reflection of the reality in the Vaikuntha world, the spiritual world. So everything we see in this world is a reflection of what exists in the spiritual world. So you can't say that the reflection is completely false. It has some, because it's a reflection of something that is eternally real. Right? But to think that the reflection is eternal, or that I can be happy in the material world, which is only a reflection of the spiritual world, that is false. That idea that I can be happy here, that is what is false. But the reflection itself has some reality to it because it's reflected off of something that's eternally real. That's the spiritual world. The reflection of the sun from a mirror is nothing but light within darkness. Thus, although it is not exactly sunlight, without the sunlight, the reflection would be impossible. Similarly, the varieties of this world would be impossible unless there were a real prototype in the spiritual world. The Mayavadi philosopher cannot understand this, but a real philosopher must be convinced that light is not possible at all without a background of light. Thus, the jugglery of words used by the Mayavadi philosopher to prove that this material world is false may amaze inexperienced children. But a man with full knowledge knows perfectly well that there cannot be any existence without Krishna. Therefore, a Vaishnava insists on the platform of somehow or other accepting Krishna. Okay, so this is what the scientists and philosophers are doing with begging the question. They assume something to be true, and they prove it's true by referring back to what they assumed as true. It's like nonsense. If I assume that Sanskriti exists, and then I prove that Sanskriti exists because I see her. Well, that didn't prove anything, right? that's begging the question. But see, in the case of Sanskriti, it's true, she does exist. But if I say that nature is orderly, and I see this troop of wilderbeests, what do you call them? Wildebeests, right? And therefore, they seem to be moving in an organized way. So I say, see, that's the proof. But that doesn't explain why the organization is there, why the wildebeests are moving in a seemingly intelligent way. It doesn't prove how nature became orderly. He's just assuming something to be true, but and you use that same assumption to prove that it's true, but that doesn't prove anything. It's just it's what's called a tautology. Tautology. Look it up. Tautology. 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 If you use these words in class, even your teacher doesn't know what they mean. What does it say? Tautology.
The saying of the same thing twice in different words.
There you go. Saying of the same thing twice in different words. This is what they're doing. You know.
Generally considered to be a fault of style.
A what? A fault.
Generally considered to be a fault of style.
Fault of style. Saying the same thing in different words. So you assume that nature is orderly, and then you see something like a troop of wildebeests moving in a herd, and you say, this is the proof that nature is orderly. It doesn't prove anything. Yeah, you say the same thing in different words. A tautology. Okay, so the actual three things are called Bhava-dvaita, Kriya-dvaita, and Dravya-dvaita. Okay? So these are the three types of bona fide oneness. So, okay. So, Bhava-dvaita means oneness in one's conception of life. Kriya-dvaita means oneness in activities. And Drava-advaita means oneness in different paraphernalia. So, this Bhava-advaita is when one understands the result and cause are one, and that duality is ultimately unreal, like the idea that the threads of a cloth are different from the cloth itself. One reaches the conception of oneness called Bhava-advaita. So, first principle of oneness, Krishna is the cause of all causes. That's called Bhava-advaita. Then, second, my dear Yudhishthira Partha, when all the activities one performs with his mind, words, and body are dedicated directly to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one reaches oneness of activities called Kriya-advaita. So the Krishna consciousness movement is teaching people how to come to the stage of dedicating everything to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the law of unified field theory. What does that say? It explains all motions. All motions should be for Krishna. all motions of the mind, of the body, of the senses, everything should be for Krishna. And therefore it says, Yat karosi yat asnasi yat johosi dadasi yat tapasyasi konte tat kurusva malarpana. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. If whatever we do, whatever we eat, whatever we think, and whatever we plan is for the advancement of the Krishna consciousness movement, this is oneness. There is no difference between chanting for Krishna consciousness and working for Krishna consciousness. On the transcendental platform, they are one, but we must be guided by the spiritual master about this oneness. We should not manufacture our own oneness. It's not smoking marijuana is oneness with Krishna. No, that's a concoction, because you can't offer it. He doesn't accept it. So the unified field theory is everything done for Krishna. That's why Einstein was not able to figure it out. All motions, everything we do should be meant to please Krishna. That's the unified field theory. And then, lastly, when the ultimate goal and interest of oneself, one's wife, one's children, one's relatives, and all other embodied living beings is one, this is called Dravya Dvaita. That is when you use everything in the service of Krishna. So, number one is the cause of everything. All right? He's the cause of all causes. Number two is that all activities should be dedicated to Krishna. And number three, all possessions should be used in the service of Krishna. This is three forms of real oneness. Did you write it down? One, Krishna is the cause of all causes. Two, all actions should be performed for the pleasure of Krishna. Three, everything that we have, all possessions should be used in the service of Krishna. These are three forms of real oneness. Mayavadis say real oneness is you become Krishna. But they don't say Krishna. You merge into the Brahma Jyoti. That's oneness. And that's not true. And the Brahma Jyoti is not, it looks like oneness, but it's not one, because it's made of infinite jivas, all individual souls. Okay, so these three principles of oneness, Krishna is the cause of all causes, all actions should be dedicated for the pleasure of Krishna, and all possessions should be used in the service of Krishna. That is real oneness. Okay, and that's Canto 7, Chapter 15, verses 62, 63. 63, 64, 65. 63, 64, 65. Did you get that, Ria? Did you get the 3 points? Number one, Krishna, the cause of all causes. Yeah. Number two? Number two, all activities should be dedicated to please Krishna. And number three, all possessions should be used in Krishna's service. You got that, Arush? Three things? Three types of oneness. Okay. So now, homework for tomorrow. Okay, so you have these 6 points of assumptions by the scientists, right? You should finish reading this page. This is not from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. This is nonsense that they've written, right? But you have to understand, if you want to understand what modern science is, you have to understand the 6 assumptions that they made. We only discussed one today, right? And this one, they don't explain why everything is orderly with regularity and structure and nature, other than it's due to gravity and electromagnetism. That they might say that. But the real reason is it's due to the intelligence of Krishna and his oneness. What is his oneness? Number one, He's the cause of all causes. That means he's the cause and the effect of everything. Number 2, all activities should be offered to Krishna, should be performed for Krishna. Number 3, all possessions should be used in the service of Krishna. That's the unified field theory. That's why Einstein couldn't find it, because he wasn't a real devotee. So the homework is you read the 5 more of these assumptions, and you explain why the first assumption is incorrect. Well, there is order in nature, but what's the problem with their explanation of it?
They say that the nature started with a big bang, which was disordered, which is unordered, but they say that nature somehow became ordered.
Okay, yes, but actually they're using a technique called begging the question. They're making an assumption, and they're using the assumption to prove that the assumption is true. You see? So you have to learn this begging the question. You have to learn what it means. Begging the question. Many people use that technique to prove things, but it doesn't prove anything. It's it's fallacious. Fallacious. Fallacious, meaning it's false. And Shasta has to finish her homework, right? But I gave it to you. 7, 15, 63, 64, 65. Somebody sent me the homework that did. Who was that? I'll have to look on my internet. Okay, so now you have your homework for tomorrow. Do you find this interesting?
Yeah.
You do? Okay. Ria, do you find this interesting? Do you find this interesting, bro? Arista, right? Is that your name? Arisha. Arisha. Arush, do you find this interesting? Okay. And what was the what do you call that? The prize word for today. Tautology. Tautology means you explain something in twice using different words. It's a tautology. In other words, you're repeating the same thing, but you're just using different words. Many people use the technique of tautology to prove something true without proving it's true. They just repeat with different words something, and they say that, this is the explanation. Okay, Hari Bol, thank you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, Shasta, when you finish your